Planets do not emit light, they can only reflect it. Unlike stars, planets do not experience nuclear fusion, the process of combining tiny particles called atoms to release energy. Nuclear fusion creates radiation, heat, and light, and makes stars glow. Because planets do not have nuclear fusion, they do not produce their own light. The sun, the bestower of light and life to the totality of the cosmos, with its unblinking, all-seeing eye, the sun is the stern guarantor of justice. With the almost universal connection of light, with enlightenment or illumination. The sun is an initiating force for humanity. Through its spiritual personality or elements and its specific frequency of light, it tunes human consciousness so that it evolves with the cosmos. Humanity evolves with the momentum of the universe, not going separate, not going divergent, but with. The sun initiates us by emitting higher dimensional codes of light that activate our DNA, that create changes in humanity. This is accomplished through the solar chain, other suns. Our soul is perfect in the sun. Its frequency, a moving aspect of light and energy within our soul. The most pure part of ourselves, our solar aspects, what we call today our higher self. This was the true meaning of the sun temples, not for sun worship. Throughout time and in many cultures, the sun is viewed as the source of creation, the creator of spirits and beings. Prophets or masters like Krishna, Moses, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, Zoroaster, Buddha, the Bab, and the Bahula are described as mirrors or pure and perfectly polished reflectors of the sun's rays. The sun has a special place in Indian culture. It is believed that the rays of the sun have healing powers, which can treat many health issues. According to the books of Ayurveda, there are several ways to reap the benefits of sunlight to prevent and cure several health problems. One such way is sunlight-charged water. In the Vedic culture, the Surya Jal Chikitsa is consumed not only to heal, but to increase longevity. As per the books of Ayurveda, it is believed that when sunlight falls on water, it enhances the molecular structure of the water. It gives energy to the water and makes it alive. Join us for Hey, welcome everybody. It's good to have you with us. All right. Well, tonight is a great show. First of all, welcome to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, help, friendship, love, knowledge, and being of value to others. Welcome back if you're new to the channel, and we have lots of new subscribers. So thank you so much for being here. It's so good to have you with us. And if you're returning, welcome back. It's Friday night and it's time to feed your mind and grow your heart. And tonight's topic is unlock the secret powers of the sun. Ooh, pretty cool stuff. Hey, first, let's go ahead and just acknowledge people in chat. Hello, Grumpy Stack. How are you doing today? Mary Wynn's good to see you. Grandpa Brian, how's it going? Truth Seeker, always a pleasure. Jay, good to see you as well. Let's see, who else do we have? I think that's about, well, there's 11 of you out there.
Grandpa Brian. Who else?
Yeah, I got Grandpa there. Brian. Okay. Yep, sure did. Mm-hmm.
Sorry about the rain, buddy.
Yeah, that's about it for the moment. I'm sure there'll be more coming in. But hey, I'm going to send it over to Teresa, and she's going to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that wonderful video, Lori.
Oh, thank you for the script idea and all of that. Yes.
Yeah, well,
love how your mind works, Teresa. Love it.
It's bringing it all home.
Bringing it all together. We work together.
But I love the visuals. That was cool. So,
thank you.
Well, greetings, everyone, and happy Friday. I hope you're all set for a terrific weekend. I've been out in the yard working all day today and
Hi,
enjoying the
Jeannie.
sun seeping in and out. Hi, Jeannie. So tonight, that video pretty much laid a good foundation for what we'll be talking about, but there's at least 6 talking points. So what we'll be discussing is the sun and how it is perceived by many cultures in ancient times and in current times as the bestower of light, life, and initiation, as Lori was saying in the video. We're talking about the sun as stargates. They are stargates and much, much more. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The creation of sun. Sun is being seen and viewed as a creator. Sun consciousness and sun beings, the entities that occupy that sun energy and bring that to Earth. The sun's physical effects on our human health. We all know that the moon and the sun both affect one another and affect our planet, and they also have wonderful effects on our health. And she talked a little bit towards the end of the video about sunlight charged water. There's various different practices and ways of doing that. And people actually believe, and I do too, I do it all the time. I use sun-infused water and tea, and it makes an energetic difference in my body as opposed to what comes out of the tap. And Jules will tell you later, she just puts her hand over it with her intent and changes the molecular structure of water to purify it. But there's actually some benefit of having actual sunlight-infused water, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, the various ways to go about making it so that you know how to make it, for those of you who don't. And then lastly, we'll talk about how we can enhance our consciousness with sun source energy, practices that we can do to bring the sun into our lives on an everyday basis. Even when it's shady out, we could do it. Now, that's not to say we're saying go out and worship the sun as a god. We're just simply saying there's ways to
wear
bring
sunscreen.
That energy. Yeah, and things to look after because your exposure to sun is important too. So when we talk about the health benefits, we'll talk about that too. So anyway, do we want to start it off with talking about the first point that the planets?
Yeah.
You were saying in the video, planets don't emit light. The sun, but suns do, and they've been seen throughout the ages as a life giver, and in later religions, they developed religion around it and a whole worship system around the sun. But they seemed to understand early on with the connection that they still had to source and all that is, how the different cosmic bodies work together and how to harness the energies that they were receiving into their very cells and into their very human forms as they were developing into humans. It didn't become a worship type religion until much later. So let's get down to my notes here on this one, and I'll be interested in hearing what the panel has to say and what they've learned about it. We all know the Rudolf Steiner approach to biodynamic farming. We talked about that before and how he's using the moon cycles for planting and how he understood how the sun worked, the whole photosynthesis process of giving life to plants and animals. But let's see. All right. Other than him, we get into the actual individual belief systems that suns are not. Okay, so I thought it would be helpful to start off with what we know about from an astronomy perspective and a science perspective before we jump in, because they are connected. So the ancients knew that the frequency of light, they knew about light frequency, and since the sun is the strongest source of that, they connected to that as the life giver of all, because they knew that certain changes in weather conditions and the sun affected their growing seasons and their plants. So that was their first connection that they made. And because without it, they noticed that things just die off if they don't get enough sunlight. So they figure the sun is the creator. And so they had an intuitive connection that they knew that the sun did that and was also connected with other planets too and other suns. So they were aware that the sun didn't act alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they created temples not necessarily for worship of the sun initially, but for learning how to tune into the frequencies to bring the energy in through meditation into their bodies for healing joints, bones, tissue, all kinds of skin disorders. And as they were learning how to use alchemy and learning how to work with herbs and plants in a healthy way, they would sometimes combine different healing practices. So the temples were like healing centers as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to worship centers. So that's what I got out of putting all the ancient theories together and the different views.
Mm-hmm. Well, without the sun, there's no growth of life. I mean, there's no life there's no plants. I mean, there's nothing really without
Well,
that energy. So there's got to be something to it,
yeah.
in my opinion. Yep.
Well, they became so enthralled by it that even in Norse, I mean, every tradition, every civilization has either a representation of the sun as a god form, god
Mm-hmm.
figure, and the moon as a mother figure,
Mm-hmm.
or they view them as brother and sister, or as partners,
Mm-hmm.
because one has the poles, the other
I think
in.
they're like parents.
Parents, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
mother,
Yep.
father,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
the mother
Well,
father concept.
actually, linguistically, there is no. I did some research on it. There's no consistency in the gender of like the sun, earth, moon system, because like in my own language, the earth is feminine, the sun is neuter, and the moon is masculine.
Hmm.
So
That's interesting.
The
yeah,
Nordic
and
is the same way.
Is
it's
it?
the same. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I guess it's just your perception. For
Hmm.
me,
Hmm.
the sun is positive and the moon is negative.
Hmm. Hmm.
Projective
That
and receptive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's the most simplistic way of looking at it, but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, if you look at it as a system, where
Mhm.
you have like a plus and a minus, that's that's kind of limited because you never have just a plus and a minus. You always have to have plus, minus, and zero. So,
Mhm.
one of those is going to be the zero, the other one's going to be the plus charge, and the other one's going to be the negative charge.
Yeah,
Science
exactly.
basic, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but even within the star itself, there is the black, what they call the black sun, and the light sun. So just like humans have the dark and the light within them, the planetary bodies do as well, and so do suns. And that plays a role in evolution, which we'll get to in a little bit about how the galaxies and the suns evolve. It said in the video, we were talking about how the sun initiates us by emitting higher dimensional codes of light that activate the DNA,
Mhm.
that
Light
activate
codes.
our cells. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
our cells in our body. And it's accomplished through uh, what we're going to talk about in a little bit, through a solar chain, other suns in other solar systems and other galaxies. It's really kind of interesting how the universe just keeps expanding and creating, and the role that the suns play in that evolution of the actual galaxies. Um, let's go into the concept that all suns are stargates. And my research is finding that it's true. The downloads that I get and the research I've been doing, it shows that they do have that function, but it's not just for interdimensional travel or for use in our incarnations into different timelines. There's much more to it than that. Um, the suns are not eternal physically. Don't freak out for you sun lovers when you think of the eternity of source and you think it's sun is source. Some people
So you're
do.
saying they have a shelf life?
They have a
Very
life
long
where
one.
a very long one that but here's how my understanding is of how it works,
Mhm.
and I've consulted with my guides about it too, and they are they have the physical aspect just like we do, and they have their astral aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And their spiritual aspects are infused with all of the cosmic energy. And so they are co-creators of one source, which nobody seems to know where that is because there are so many solar systems. But the suns will eventually run out of fuel, and they'll no longer shed light on the planetary bodies within their solar systems. This means that the planets will end their life cycles and their energy will ascend as well back into source energy, as we all do. All of us ascend, the planets ascend, all of the planetary bodies within a solar system ascend. Now, that's providing we've all passed our initiations. But what happens to these co-creator suns when their light fizzles out and all the planets within the solar system start changing and decaying and dying off because they don't have that energy from the sun? So I did some looking into that, and I said, okay, I remember from astronomy when I was younger, but they eject a certain amount of their material back into space. They eject it back into space. And new physical stars are then formed by this material through the light codes that they are receiving from the other suns in the other solar systems within that galaxy. So the suns are reborn, but not in their physical body. From a
but
spiritual perspective,
we've never seen a sun born. Ever. We've seen suns die by exploding in the form of a
like a
supernova.
supernova. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we've also never seen a black hole being formed as a result of a
Right.
supernova. We've never seen a star being formed or a planet.
Maybe
We've
we'll
never
get that
s-
chance with the Webb telescope
Maybe.
and the
Maybe.
probes that they send out. Yeah.
Better chance
So
of it, absolutely.
all we have is anecdotal evidence in that early tribes documented their feelings about this, and modern day spiritualists have had visions. Even the prophets in biblical days have had visions. Doesn't mean they're true, but what they're seeing is that the sun stars are linked together on an astral level. And so the material that they produce once they stop and once they explode is pulled back together. The universal forces pull them back together to create a new body with nuclear fission. And so we may not have seen it through the telescope yet because we can only see so far with the technology that we have, but we have enough theoretical science to suggest that that's what's happening. These particles are pulled together, and that energy, that to me is source creator working its purpose. So then what you end up having is the birth of a new galaxy. Okay, now think about it this way: it's the source of all, and the ability to keep creating itself over and over. Okay, bringing that same wisdom and energy and knowledge to the different civilizations within its planetary systems. So the Milky Way is our galaxy, and we are currently inside of the Milky Way, right? There's about 300 or 400 billion stars in our own Milky Way, just ours. The Andromeda is the closest galaxy to our own galaxy, and it contains over 1 trillion stars. But the sun itself is only one type of 24 different types of stars, right, Dalibor? There's 24 different types of stars, and the sun is one of them. And the difference is that the sun, and the reason it's called sun, it is always at the center of a planetary system of other bodies. These other stars who also give off light and have nuclear fusion, they have their spiritual context as well, their functions on the planets that surround them or that they're near, but they're not the center of a cycle of planetary bodies. So that makes them unique. And that's often why they were considered the source for a given
The
civilization.
center of attention,
Mm-hmm.
the all that is. Yep.
Yep.
The
Now
spark
there are
of life.
solar systems that are out there that have 2 or more suns. Some of them have two. That's a binary star system. There's a trinary star system where you'll see 3 stars, but you'll also see galaxies and solar systems that have more than one sun. So that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty interesting. We don't know if there's any life on the planets in those solar systems, but wow, think about what that could mean. There could mean a whole different way of looking at life in those particular locations than what we have here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what do you do when you have 2 sun gods? You know, you have two concepts of source and
You double the
creation.
sunscreen.
Yeah.
Listen, I'd like to bring the panel in real quick if I could.
Yeah.
Sophia, it's good to see you tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Jules, the alchemist from Down Under, good to see you. And Dalibor Suki, our
Pleased to be here.
resident professor, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that, Jules. Wow, nice.
What's Jules got there?
She's got
Yeah,
some scenery going on. Mm-hmm.
like I
Yeah, she's
said,
outdoors.
it's
That's the
around.
sun.
Yeah.
It's almost noon by Jules in Australia, and it's 3:30 a.m. here in Germany.
Wow.
So, in 3 hours, 2.5 hours, we're gonna see the sun coming up from the east, right over there.
Wow. And then
Yep.
it's bedtime for you.
That's bedtime for me. Yeah.
Bedtime
Hey,
for Bonzo.
I was curious, Jules, what does the sun mean to you? I mean, how do you see it? What's your view? And what do you think about the sun?
Oh, well, listening to you, I could change my mind. Just hearing a different version this day. If you look at the word soul, it's got soul, and you are in that word as well. So SOL, which is my logo, soul tree, and soul is the
Love
sun.
it.
Yeah.
So you are, if you look at the word soul, you are in that word with the sun, aren't you?
Right. I
So
agree.
we're connected. And the point I'm at this moment in my journey is I'm just letting everything just flow, because I think we're about to find out a lot of different things that we have been programmed to think is the way things are in the universe and the multiverse. And, the whole equation of E equals MC squared. Now, if we're one, because I've got that message as one whole thing together, we're no longer in a duality because we're one. So that C squared on the end of it, that squared was the dark and the light matter, and we're now fully integrated into the radiant light, which is emitted from the sun. In the multiverse, because Earth has been a nexus planet to usher in all of this wonderful energy. So this is just one version, but you can turn on a dime, and I don't have to believe anything that's been previously written. And at the moment, I'm just going with the flow of the radiant light that's emitting from this sun that I'm sitting outside in. So I could finish this show and I could have my mind changed with another thing that someone else offers me. So that's where I'm sitting now, is being freely an open vessel and nothing sticking.
Wow, Jules, that's amazing. That's awesome. I love that. Excellent. How about you, Sophia? How do you feel about the sun? What's your opinion about the sun? What do you think?
What does it mean to me? There is more than one sacred text that speaks of the sun and the moon that were placed in the heavens to help mankind tell the time of year and the seasons. So it's there, in my experience and my opinion, to help us realize the place and space and time throughout the year, to take advantage of the frequency and intensity of the energy that is present throughout the year, to make the most of our experience on the physical plane. So to tell time, to tell the seasons, I mean, there's 8 fire festivals. So you have the equinoxes, the solstice, and then the cross corner days as well. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they're all celebrated because, I mean, let's put the cheese on the cracker, shall we? And I'll take a bite. Without the sun, we're done. We are
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
You
doubt
know,
about it.
there's no photosynthesis. It's just we're a very delicate species, if you will.
Definitely.
And I think that's why the reverence is important to me as well as other people.
Agreed. Go ahead, Jules. Go ahead.
Well, if you look at the word season, I spell it SEESUN instead of SEASON
Like seed.
because you see the sun, and that's what is the seasons. You know, that's been spelt differently, right? Because we can see the sun, right? But our seasons here, which we're now in autumn, which you call fall, which where I live in Queensland, which is the sunshine state, we're just getting a little bit cool. But we didn't receive mangoes this Christmas. We usually have mangoes because we got rain at a time when we normally probably don't have as much rain. But I have got flowers on my mango tree that I don't normally get until August, ready for December's crop. So going with the seasons, I think with the earth balancing now, as we all balance as one, I think with your intention, and that's how I've planted for a long time, is that you just plant when you want to plant something, because I can get things up. This is myself personally, you know, things to grow. Now, if I was to say to someone who says, well, how can you have mango flowers on? Well, how do we know that the program that we were once in that's now being cleared, that we can't, that Mother Earth and us working with her is that we can just have things all the time, right? So we're not limited by the story that things have to grow at a certain time. Now, I know where you live, it might snow. Well, that's not my story. I don't live in the snow.
Right. Yeah.
So
So you
where
don't
I
see things
live,
die
I
off the same way, right?
no. So I can plant all year. Like I've just planted some herbs, and the length of the leaf on that herb is the first leaf on it is amazing. The size of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you don't
Interesting.
usually plant them till September, which is spring. And I've put it in the ground, and it's the longest I've seen that leaf on a plant. So what I do is with my intention, and it's with everybody, it's whatever you believe, because that's your truth.
Right.
Okay? I can only watch in my garden how I grow, how things work.
From your perspective.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
and everyone's
I'm not
coming from their own perspective.
From your
That's right.
perspective and your geographical location, you guys
Correct.
are extremely blessed with longer periods of seasonal growth, and
Definitely.
things don't die out the same way like they do over here in the United States
just-
on the East Coast or in the northern sections. There's not enough warmth. There's not enough sunlight for things to grow, and they die off and they don't come back all the time.
We'll just
So
say
our
it's
environment's
balancing.
very different. Yeah.
Yeah, but I in my own gnosis is eventually the planet will be just balanced, and that's how I see it, how I've gone onto my soul plane, seen how I've done my work with my own self, and seen that the planet will be blessed as a beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. Well, I can say heaven, because that's what I've created at my place anyway. But I believe that it can be in everybody's place, you know. So that's just where I'm coming from how I view from my view.
Yeah, and thank you for your view, Jules. We
Yeah.
appreciate that very much.
Yep.
How about you, Dalibor? Do you spend much time in the sun?
Obviously no. No, I take vitamin D supplements because I'm kind of a night creature. By habit, I don't know why. I just like the peace and quiet and
The
that
solitude
sort of thing. The solitude
of the night.
But the sun is undeniably a living entity. It's a living being,
I agree.
and it's I would say
And
the
has
ultimate,
consciousness. Yeah.
and has consciousness. Because
Mm-hmm.
let's say you take something that doesn't that you wouldn't qualify as a human or as a living conscious being, like a piece of rock. If you take an EEG or an EKG of that rock, it's just going to be flatline. If you
Mm-hmm.
take resistance measurements or whatever, it's just
Mm-hmm.
going to flatline. But if you take measurements of the sun, it's going up and down, left and right, all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're measuring infrared, X-ray, visible light, radio waves,
Mm-hmm.
gamma rays,
Mm-hmm.
proton emissions, uh, solar plasma, or
Mm-hmm.
i.e. fire coming off the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's behaving exactly like a living being, and
Yeah.
I would posit that it's the ultimate living being. It is the ultimate God. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I I think that in the original religion there was no compulsion to worship the sun, because the sun gives everything it gives us absolutely free, and it never asks anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while, if you feel it in your heart to just thank the sun when you see it in the sky and say, hey, you know what, thanks a
Mm-hmm.
lot for everything you do. It really appreciates that, because it demonstrates it by somehow, somewhere, bestowing favor upon your life. If you
Mm-hmm.
just adopt that as a spiritual
Sure.
practice of
Giving thanks,
giving
appreciation,
thanks,
gratitude. Yeah.
yeah, to the
I
sun.
totally agree. Yep.
Yeah, and like I said, it's helped me tremendously. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have
Yeah.
my own way of doing it. I
Mm-hmm.
made up my own prayer in Latin to the sun. But
Yeah.
That's
if you don't
cool.
have something like that, you
Mm-hmm.
could just look at it for a while and say,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
Yeah, definitely.
I just
Uh,
thanked it and got out of the road.
yeah.
Got out of the sun.
That's awesome. I have a kind of a deep opinion about the sun, and I've had this kind of knowing for a while, and it's my understanding that the sun is the actual energy that's in the sun is the same energy that is in our spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the sun is the heart of God, and we're fractals of that light. So we are part of God. Also, I believe that the Akashic records are stored in the sun because of the way the energy is
Correct.
held in the sun. And so
Yep.
that's how,
Wholeheartedly.
yeah, for this solar system, each sun is responsible for the planets and what goes on as a system. And
Mm-hmm.
every person that's on the earth, their Akashic records are located there. And you're literally, your spirit body is, that's where the energy comes from. That's
Right.
why when you're a kid, you feel like you're so unstoppable. You have so much energy. It's because that energy
Yeah.
is fresh and new, and as we grow older and through time, we use up that energy, although we still have a lot of the energy. I think we rejoin that as we drop the body and move forward. But I think the sun is
I
way more
agree.
important than most people
Yeah.
think. And also, we were talking about programming your water. And of course, like with jewels, you can program your water with the intent just by holding your
Mm-hmm.
hands on it or writing something on your cup, which I like to do. I am the truth. I am the light. I am the love. I am.
Uh-huh.
And just by drinking that water, that
Yeah.
solidifies that belief. And just like, your sun tea, yeah, and that kind of stuff, you just put it in the sun and it absorbs that energy. And then as you drink
Yeah.
that water, your body absorbs the energy. But
Yeah.
I
And
really
it's
believe that that's what the purpose of the sun is. And then, of course, um,
it's a proven thing that writing positive messages on the outside of a container of water
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
actually has a noticeable, scientifically provable effect on the quality of that water. Has an effect on germination of plant seeds,
Mhm.
a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. Teresa, go ahead, Teresa. I think she had her hand up first. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that
Uh-huh.
along with Lori, I have always venerated the sun as a spirit of its own and seen it as my source and creator of all things.
Mhm.
And there are so many embodiments of different aspects of that sun
Mhm.
that brings certain qualities into our lives. So it's not just what I get from my physical feeling and sensations of what the sun does to my body,
It's
but
encoding.
it's inspiration. It means inspiration and strength. It's power. It's illumination, and I think it comes from my past lives in the Celtic traditions,
Could very well be.
where I picked it up, and I came into this life knowing it. And my parents would drag me to church. I was brought up as a Catholic. They would drag me into the pews at church, and they'd be talking about God and Jesus and Mary and all, and I'd be like shaking my head. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "The sun, mommy. It's the sun. We're powered by the sun." I was drawing pictures of the sun before I drew anything else. Dalabor's comments in our chat room. Isn't it amazing how children all over the world always
All over
picture
the world.
a smiling, fun sun
Yeah.
face?
All over the world,
Yeah.
no matter what culture these kids come from, they always draw the sun with a big smile.
Because
So,
it's a positive energy.
because it's a positive, life-giving energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
hmm
What, Jules, you had a comment? I hope you had a
Yeah,
comment.
well, I was just going to say, because we are water, mostly water ourselves,
66%.
and so when people don't, whatever the number is, it doesn't matter the number. It's just that we're water, and people don't realise, you know, if you're writing on a bottle or a glass the word of whatever it is, you speaking those whatever words, you're the water that holds you're the vessel, the container, and the words you're using are actually, well, what's the filter? You know, what are you saying to yourself all the time that's creating your reality? As I always go back to the words. So if you're water and it holds memory and you keep going on about the same old story, you're only going to get more of the same old story that you keep telling yourself, because the water's just working with the sun, and the sun as the creator is just going to give you what you've just asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so.
There's a truth seeker. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I have found that too. There's a modern religion, and I'm not into religions for the sake of being into religions. It's just that I borrow things because there's little nuggets of wisdom in all these religions. But there's a modern
What's
day religion
nuggets?
called the Baha'i faith. But there's a metaphor here that speaks to my heart a lot, and I thought I'd share that with you. They say the sun, and we touched on it in the opening video just a little bit. The sun symbolizes the creator, and prophets or masters that emanate from the sun as part of source knowledge and wisdom teachings, like Krishna, Moses, Jesus Christ, Zoroaster, Muhammad, Buddha, the Bab, and so forth, all acting as perfect mirrors, purely and completely polished reflectors of the sun's rays. Now, what's interesting about this passage is that it puts it in the context of progressive revelation. One of their central beliefs of faith is the one that I wanted to read. It is so beautiful. Can I read it, Lori? It's just very brief.
Yes, sure.
It says, quote, "The Sun of Divinity and of reality has revealed itself in various mirrors, and through these mirrors are many, yet the Sun is one. The Sun communicates wisdom, divine intelligence, and universal law to the consciousness through all religions and philosophies, and through many masters or teachers throughout our solar system." Quote, "The bestowals of God are one. The reality of the divine religion, as they see it, is one. Consider how one and the same light has reflected itself in the different mirrors and manifestations of it throughout time. We see divine religion as the cosmic nous of divine intelligence, and love is wisdom from source, and all teachings are from one source. Quote, there are certain souls who are lovers of the sun. They perceive the effulgence of the sun from every mirror. Meaning, these souls study, observe, and consider aspects of all philosophies and religious beliefs without judgment or obligation, rather through a heart space of love. Quote, they are not fettered or attached to these mirrors, They are attached to the sun itself and adore it, no matter from what point it may shine. So we
Yeah.
don't adhere to any one faith or form attachments to any one guru, no loyalty, no allegiance to any one person or teacher, no idol worship. We stay true to the divine wisdom of Source itself. And those who adore just the mirror and get attached to the mirror or the teacher become deprived of witnessing the light of the sun when it shines forth from all other mirrors. I just
Yeah.
thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, that is. Wow, profound. I like
It's
that.
a, it's a
is.
warning.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jules.
I know a lot of Baha'is, actually. I've been to a few of their gatherings many years ago, though, not now.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, interesting their take on things. Like everything. Just being open. Just being
Yeah.
open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I call my username is Sun Rabbit, because a sun rabbit is a figure of speech in Russian, and it means like a reflection of the sunlight over water as it goes against, like, let's say the side of a building, and it's
Yeah.
like little light rabbits that like run around the place. That's what a sun rabbit is. In other words, I'm saying I'm just a reflection of that thing in the sky, which is a living God,
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, makes sense.
basically. But see, a lot of what we're told about the sun or about our bodies or about the earth, I think we could just pretty much ignore a lot of that, because a lot of that is patently untrue. Like, I don't believe that it's 93 million miles away. I don't think it's like, 1.4 million miles across. I don't believe any of that, because why else would you have solar eclipses where the umbra or the shadow of totality is only 70 miles wide? What's up with that? Under no other circumstances do you have an umbra that would be um, smaller than the object creating it. It doesn't work. You could do infinite amounts of experiments in your room, with a candle, and you'll discover
And
that the shadow is always going to be bigger than the
right.
object
I was
causing it.
just going to say that
It's
if
never
they
going to
did
be.
a hand puppet
Yeah,
against the light, you're going to notice that the shadow is much bigger than the actual
yeah. So
object that is
that's
creating the
the
shadow.
That's the only time when that just doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing that the generally held belief that the planets don't produce their own light. We know that the moon produces a lot more light than the sun.
Ooh,
And
but isn't the moon reflective light from the
no,
sun?
Yes, planets do
no,
not emit light themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
reflect light. But they do
no,
have some energy inside of them, but they don't have the nuclear fission to produce the light source that the suns produce or other stars. There's a difference between stars and planets. Planets absorb light, stars
no.
push out light. Yes,
No,
that's
we don't know
astronomy
what those.
101.
But that's just conventional conformist science. The here today, gone
No, it says
tomorrow.
observation. All you got to do is look out into space. You don't see the moon when the sun, you don't really see, it only reflects the light from one side of it.
Okay,
That's
all
just
right. All
logic.
right, then how do you explain the fact that if you have like an area of your backyard that's illuminated by moonlight, and let's say a portion
Because
of
that's
that
the part that's
backyard
reflecting the sun.
is okay, let me finish. Let me finish. And then you have a portion of the backyard that's in shade, that's not
Uh-huh.
illuminated by the moonlight. And then you measure each of these areas. The one that's being illuminated by the moon is colder than the one that's in the shade. It should be the opposite. In other words, it's emitting a type of energy that we still don't understand completely. And the other weird thing about the moon is also the intensity of the moonlight that it gives off. If you go to Wikipedia, it's going to tell you that moonlight is 1/10,000 the intensity of sunlight. Now,
Right.
okay, if that's true, then and the moon is 238,000 miles away, then half that distance using the inverse square law is going to be 4 times as intense at what 75,000 miles. Now, if you keep doing the math and slashing the distance by 1/2 and increasing the luminosity by a factor of 4 or 2 squared, by the time you get 500 kilometers off the surface of the moon, that luminosity is 25 times higher than the sun. By the time you get of the 250 kilometers from the surface of the moon, that's 100 times more intense than the surface of the sun. So
Then
what
how do you
explains that?
explain the freezing cold? What explains the freezing cold temperatures on the other side of the moon that's in the darkness that doesn't receive any sun, and it's freezing cold temperatures and ice? If it
I
has the
contend
kind
that
of internal energy that the sun has, it wouldn't have a cold frozen section. to it.
nobody's been there. Nobody's been to the far side of the moon. Nobody's been to the moon ever. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yep. So there's a lot of debate in the scientific community, but we do have satellites that have circled the moon and have shown pictures to show us certain things. Mental health. Let's talk about the
Have
health
we?
issues. Yes, we have. Let's talk about the
Green
health
screens.
benefits of the sun and its healing powers. I did not know until I started looking into it. You know, I always go out there and I see my cat and dog do it too. They like to lay and sunbathe. We all like to sunbathe. It feels good, doesn't it? But they're actually, I think Ruby's doing it to heal herself because she has a little bit of arthritis or inflammation in her back legs. And she seems to enjoy that stretching out in the heat of the sun. And so I was looking at the health benefits of sunlight and not just the sun infused water and fruit flavored waters or teas that we drink, but also its effect on our sleep, and it affects our mental health as well. So I wanted to start with mental health. The availability of sunshine has more impact on mood than rainfall, temperature, or any other environmental factor, says most spiritual healers. Getting some sun increases your serotonin levels and helps you stave off seasonal affective disorder, SAD. And sun exposure can also help people with anxiety, depression, and especially combination with other treatments that they might be on for that. So I kind of wondered why I get depressed sometimes when it rains for days and days and days and I don't get that sunlight.
It's 'cause
Lori,
you're
how many times have you heard me belly aching about that?
many,
Huh?
many times. Yeah. Can't imagine not seeing the sun that much. Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that it was a form of depression or a form of mood altering, that the sun really does affect my mood.
Yeah. Yeah. It affects
Mhm.
mine too. Yep. What you
Yeah,
think?
that's why any kind of natural solution like sun exposure is always going to be a hell of a lot healthier than any kind of pills or whatever you may be taking.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
In other words, my faith is much higher than my trust in science,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which might sound paradoxical from somebody who claims to be a scientist and shit, but that's the way it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's interesting because you do get into
Hmm.
the science very deep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, it affects sleep, and this I didn't know either. I always view the moon, the rhythm of the moon, affecting the sleep, but the sun does too. I've noticed on days when I'm out there doing a lot of sports or a lot of activities, and today I did a lot of yard work, you get tired and like, oh, I think I overdid it in the sun today. I feel really tired. And what's actually going on there is there's the serotonin that you soak up from the rays of the sun does more than just boost your mood. It might also help you get a more restful sleep at night. I was talking to Lori. I get these restless nights. Well, there hasn't been any sun for weeks and weeks and weeks. So working in tandem with serotonin is melatonin, as you all know, a chemical in your brain that lulls you into a slumber, and one that the sun also helps with. The sun actually helps you produce that, right? Right, Lori?
Yeah, that's because both are secreted by the pineal gland. And why does the pineal gland react to the sun? Because inside the pineal gland are actual photoreceptors, the same exact ones that you have on the inside of your eye or on the retina of your eye. So
It's probably
yeah,
picking up the light codes
it's
from the sun.
it's picking up whatever's getting through your
That's
skull.
our
Literally.
antenna when you think about it. For me,
Mhm.
that's the antenna right there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Do you sleep better, Jules, when you've had a night? Well, of course, you always have a lot of sun there, but does it affect your sleep pattern at all?
I can't say whether because that's what we do, have a lot of sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
that,
you're always getting a lot of those rays. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I know for a fact from going to New Zealand when we went over there for a holiday, because they wear a lot of black and there's a lot of depression in that country because they don't see the sun.
Mm-hmm.
The same as southern states, because we see, that's why a lot of people have moved to Queensland
Hmm.
and they're all moving
Uh-huh.
they're all taking over Gympie
I can't
because
blame them.
they can feel the energy of the place. But yeah, it
Yeah.
is, you can see when you don't get the sun. But actually, we had a beautiful couple of days of rain, which we all required this week. So it's the good with the good.
Mm-hmm.
It's true what Truth Seeker said, about the higher depression rates. Like here in Europe, it fluctuates. Like during the summer, we get a lot of sun. We get, I think, like 18 hours a day. But in the winter, we have like 18 hours of night,
Uh-huh.
where the sun comes out around, I think, 10 a.m. and it goes down by 4 p.m.
Wow,
So
that's a
we only have
short.
like.
That's like Alaska.
Hmm. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's really high up, despite
Mm-hmm.
what most people think. It's actually on the same latitude as Hudson Bay in Canada,
Hmm.
where I live.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
Hmm.
this area of Central Europe. The only reason it's
And
not as cold as Hudson Bay is because of the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream that sends hot winds from the equator or from the south over this part of Europe. That's the only reason we're not freezing.
yeah.
Well, all I know is I feel a lot better when I get a certain amount of sunshine every day. And for years, I worked outside and absolutely enjoyed working outside and
Yeah.
being outside. It beats being in an office, in a cave all day long, pushing papers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I can tell you, for me, it was a very necessary, very therapeutic, and it's something I've got to have every single day, and at least an hour to 2 hours in the sun. And I
I
typically do
loved
it
it
in the morning,
too. Yeah, I
or
loved
to
it
watch
too.
the sunset at night as well.
How
Yeah,
did you feel
Mhm.
on that bus with the great big windshield, the sun beating down on this big glass in your face
you
while you were
prayed
driving?
for AC
You
and
prayed for air
earbuds.
conditioning.
Mhm.
Although I enjoyed
That was
having
a bitch.
driving a school bus, it was a lot of fun. It sure taught me a lot about people and
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
fundamental level. So yeah, a lot of positive things from those experiences. But yeah, yep. Sophia,
So
do you spend?
vitamin D, right? Oh, go ahead, Sophie.
Yeah, I was just curious if Sophia spends. Do you sit in the sun? Do you absorb it? Do you just like ah? Did How do you feel about that?
I have to be very careful with
Mm-hmm.
the time I spend in the sun because I am photosensitive.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
But properly sunscreened,
Mm-hmm.
to protect my skin, I
Mm-hmm.
believe there are huge benefits to our chemistry, our body chemistry, by spending the time in the sun, doing it safely. Also, being outside in the fresh air
Yeah.
does a lot to balance the body and the system.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I like to meditate outside, and
Mm-hmm.
it's usually like under a shaded tree on a
That's
sunny
funny.
day.
I love it that
Mhm.
way too. Big old
Yeah,
rock. Yeah, and a
Yeah,
yeah.
me
big
too.
tree,
Yeah.
lots of shade. Yes, I
Mhm,
agree. Very
I,
grounding.
I
mhm,
learned that limited exposure, if you like 20-minute doses, or if I go past a half an hour of now when
Mhm.
I was a kid, I could be out in it all day.
Mhm.
Working the docks at the marina, I'd be out in it all day, and I saw the effects that it had on certain people's skin in
Mhm.
terms of skin cancer and things like that. So there has to be some common sense and balance and discernment that you
right.
use with exposure to sun. But do
Sure.
you know that people have people that are in areas where there's very little sunlight are almost completely depleted of their vitamin D,
That's
Yeah,
right.
you really need that. Your body
and
has to have that.
Mhm.
Yep.
it's for good bone health and
Mhm.
tissue.
Most
And
definitely. Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
Mental
I the
health.
last time I went for a checkup, last couple of times I went for a checkup, they said I was very low in my vitamin D.
Most of us
So
are.
I
Mhm.
have to take D supplements because
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
has to do
Yeah.
with the blood sugars in my body and things like that. But, and I
Yeah,
wasn't getting
Ooh,
any
I like this
sunlight.
idea. Dolly Belfort just said, I'm going to build a natural foot spa outside. It's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned that because I want to do a foot spa, not with water, but with dirt. I just want to immerse my feet into the dirt, into the ground, in the
hmm
Uh-huh.
cool dirt, and just ground myself in it. But that's interesting, Dolly. That's awesome.
hmm
Yeah, had to comment on that.
Is it blood
My feet
pressure
are
and
in the
heart?
dirt all the time.
Oh, yeah?
Feels
Yeah,
good,
that's
doesn't
what
it?
I don't
Or,
have shoes
you're at the
on.
beach, yeah, and you put your feet in the sand or you bury
Sand,
yourself up
yeah.
to your neck.
Uh-huh.
I just think that's the greatest. And the fact that you're not dead is even better because you're getting the grounding effect of it is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like
Yeah.
so is taking mud baths in the sun. Go ahead,
Ah,
Galvo.
she said, yep, dirt, rocks, and copper. There you go. Yeah, it's just
hmm
connecting to that energy. And what better way to do it than to immerse your feet into the dirt? Yep. Cool.
Galvo, you
Yeah.
were going to say
I
something?
like that.
Yeah. I take 2,000 IUs of vitamin D every single day. That's part of my vitamin ritual because I don't get any sun. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't get around to it, really. I have no need
Yeah.
to be outside. And
Hmm.
when I do go outside, it's like dark,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
Also,
So
okay,
you would say you're a bit nocturnal, huh?
Yes,
you're
definitely. Yeah.
nocturnal.
Yeah.
He's a possum, not a rabbit.
Wait
He's
a
a
minute
Yeah.
possum.
now.
I prefer to reside in the halls of Amenti, as Hermes would say it. You
Okay.
know.
I love it.
That's
That's
great.
awesome.
All right, let's see. Blood pressure and heart health. Here's another one.
Okay.
When sunlight hits your skin, your
Mm-hmm.
body releases something called nitric oxide into your
Uh-huh.
bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
This compound brings down blood pressure and improves heart health. Maintaining healthy blood pressure can reduce your risk, of course, of cardiac disease and stroke. Feeling of relaxation may also naturally bring down blood pressure, so boosting your happiness by soaking up those rays also aids in keeping your pressure down. I'm telling you, when I get upset, I often go take a walk in the sun. It has a calming effect on you, you know? Or at least
Mm-hmm.
for me, it does.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm extremely bugged by something, I only
Mm-hmm.
need a 20-minute recharge out in the sun, and I'm
And
able
then
to
you're
let things
debugged.
go. I'm debugged, and I let
Mm-hmm.
things go.
That's
Yeah,
good. That's good.
yeah. But I didn't realize that it was from this that the sun was doing that to my. I just didn't realize it was doing that to my blood pressure.
Yeah. Huh.
Although I am aware of people because I was trained as an EMT to treat people who were suffering from sunstroke,
Mm-hmm.
where they had an excess of sun and an
Mm-hmm.
excess of heat,
Mm-hmm.
and it boils up their blood and it
You gotta
reduces
cool
their
them down.
oxygen. You got
Mm-hmm.
to cool them down and get them out. And so I was
Yep.
aware of that, but I just didn't think of it from a therapeutic, you know,
Yeah.
no wonder I like to chill in some
Yeah.
sunlight, you
Chilling's
know?
good. Yep.
Yeah. And for me, folks, I use sun treatment for scalp psoriasis. I don't have it really bad, but I do have it in a couple patches. And it was created by when I had my accident and they had to remove glass from my scalp. They treated me with some of this medicated soap and some type of antibacterial agent that was too strong. It burned my scalp and it went into the pores down deep inside my brain in the back base of my head all the way around. And as a result, I don't have the T cells to replace new skin. It comes in dead. So I have this psoriasis now on the back of my head. And I was telling Lori the other day, I was taught through the dermatologist who's also a spiritualist. She says, get yourself some sea salt. Dead sea salt is the best, she says. And get yourself a bag of dead sea salt. Get some tea tree oil, which I got from Australia, straight from Australia, tea tree
hmm
oil, and some lavender oil, and make yourself your own shampoo. And rub it into your scalp, and then go out in the sun for 20 minutes and put your head down and just let the sun bake and activate those ingredients between the oils and the sea salt. And she said it will act as an exfoliant. It'll reduce the swelling, take the inflammation out and the itch, and but you'll need to keep up with it because you have the problem with not being able to generate
Yeah,
the new
well,
T cells. And
yeah,
so I do, and it's a great exercise.
sure. Well, yeah, tea tree oil, I have it too, but it's too strong. You gotta always dilute it with something. Always dilute it with like olive oil or 1-to-1 with olive oil or something like that, because otherwise it's gonna burn your skin.
Yeah, you got to be careful with it. That's
Yeah.
why they were saying. I think they
Mhm.
had lavender. I put coconut oil in mine.
Sure. Yeah, that
But it
works.
was Jules. It was Jules and a friend of Jules who gave me the ingredients to put together. And Jules, it worked out great. It really worked out, and it really helps
Hmm.
me. And I do it about once a week, but I can't always get the sunlight. Now there's something called a sun lamp that some people have. I don't
Hmm.
know much about those, but I guess they help you with growing
Sure.
I
vegetables and
have
stuff.
heard.
But you can.
Well, people use them for tanning at home in the winter. For
Hmm.
tanning, you know.
Well, not only tanning, but they also use the sun lamps to produce the vitamin D to help stay off the
Hmm.
seasonal affect disorder. I was actually looking into one myself, but have employed
Uh-huh.
other tactics to help me through the dark half of the year.
Right.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we lost Lori for a minute. I'm sure she'll try to make it back in, but in the
I don't
meantime,
know.
we'll just.
I don't know why, but I've never had depression. I've never had seasonal affective depression. I just don't like the winter because of the cold, so I tend to stay inside. But as to why I never got depression, I guess it could be the fact that I always supplement with the proper vitamins. I do vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A, E,
Hmm.
zinc, a whole bunch of herbs I won't even mention.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's what the write up was. Ultraviolet UV radiation has immunosuppressive effects, and heliotherapy. I see Jules the alchemist working. Heliotherapy is a well-described treatment modality for psoriasis. Our data show that clinical improvement of psoriasis following sun exposure is preceded by a rapid reduction in local and systemic inflammatory markers,
It's
strongly
it,
suggesting that immune modulation mediated the observed clinical effect.
mhm.
Extensively documented that UV irradiation is a potent inducer of immunosuppression.
See, I have psoriasis right here.
Yeah, I see that. Uh huh.
Yeah, I've had it for like decades.
Mm-hmm.
Never goes away. It's always there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I was always under the impression that if you had skin sores, the worst thing you could do is expose them to the sunlight. And
Actually, I tried everything. I tried everything. I tried tea tree oil. I tried chlorine. I tried alcohol. The only thing that works is iodine. Iodine, and it
iodine.
works. Yeah, you put it on. You let it. It turns brown, so you shouldn't be going outside because it looks kind of funny. And the next day, you can make the brown spots go away by rubbing them with vitamin C. It'll take away the brown stain immediately. But if you do that like once every 6 months or so, it'll keep it at bay. So yeah, iodine tincture.
Jules, do you use iodine? I know you use
No,
tea tree oil. Yeah, here
oh,
comes Lori.
I've actually I'm using all my balms now, all the stuff I make with all my uh my stuff I make up with all my coconut oil and all my herbs for my garden. So
Yeah.
I've been I know that's all. I mean, we're not talking about the sun, but I mean, without the sun, we wouldn't have our plants. And I just know from the last week, I dropped a pot on my foot and I just used my comfrey on there, and
Eh, ouch.
voila, voila, it's no pain. And I've got to change over to my
Great.
tablet, Laurie, because my phone's going flat. So I'm just going to switch over, okay?
All right. All right. So basically, so those are the things that I found. I don't know, Sophia. Do you have any practices or things that you do from a health perspective with sunlight?
um, I think it depends on the ailment as to how sun responds to it, whether it's the immune system that's throwing a fit, or if there's something that the This is not my wheelhouse. I know enough about it to converse, but not
Yeah.
deeply.
I just didn't know if you had any particular practices. They gave us two. I read all about, well, there's lots of ways to do
Lavender
it.
is
Lavender?
yeah, well, for like burns, and not like open burns. I'm talking like, oh, I burnt myself on the stove. I'm not talking like something that needs literal
Yeah.
medical attention, but
Mhm.
like bruises and stuff like that. Lavender serves me well. Yeah, I went roller skating with my best friend, like, oh, that would have been April now, and I fell roller skating and landed on the palm of my hand. And the next day I had a bruise the size of a quarter, and I put some lavender oil on it, and the next day it was gone. So yeah, some
Wow.
people use iodine, tea tree. Lavender, I think, is under celebrated.
Mhm.
Aloe
Well,
vera is really good for
aloe
sunburns as
vera,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, and all kinds
Yeah.
of skin issues. But yeah,
It's a
Yep.
Well,
delicious smell.
people are taking things
you
like
can ingest it as
crystals.
well.
People are
Yeah.
taking things like crystals and these herbs and these oils with water and sunlight, and it's the combination of these ingredients with the sun that gives it an extra boost or some type. It's actually it's actually a form of alchemy. It's transmuting or transforming the different molecules of these different elements to intermesh with your skin
Well,
somehow.
that
I
same thing
don't know the
happens.
science behind it,
Same,
but
same thing happens if you were to expose the water to the sun inside a glass vessel, whether that be clear or colored. And it doesn't even necessarily matter if it's made of plastic or not, because plastic is technically, in terms of alchemy, that's a vegetable stone. So plastic is
yeah,
technically a stone.
you
So
know, you got a point here because we were talking about the your Veda practices of making sun infused water by just sitting it out in a vessel for up
mhm,
to 8 hours and getting infused. The Hawaiians have a practice using blue glass. Based on
mhm,
ancient Hawaiian
yeah,
traditions, they take sunlight
yeah. I have a
coupled
blue
with a
bottle.
blue bottle,
Yeah,
and it acts as a water
I have a
purification system.
red bottle
Uh huh.
and
Oh, there's
also
Jules with
green
hers.
bottle.
Green bottle, yeah. And that different colors have an effect as to how the water gets
They do.
infused. That and
They
your
do.
intent, whatever your intent
Yes.
is that you're setting,
The
is really
intent is
important.
key.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
Hmm.
the key.
Yep.
It says that no matter what you do, no matter how you make this water. Now, I make fruit infused water because I get tired of just regular water all the time. So I like a little bit of flavor to my water, not a lot, and I have to be careful not to load it full of sugar. But I'll take some blueberry or raspberry or strawberry, orange, lemon, whatever I have, and I'll grind that up and put it into the water and sit it out in the sun for up to 6 to 8 hours. And I get a really nice, refreshing drink out of that with a slight flavor to it. But I don't think there's enough vitamin or nutrients in the fruit that I'm using to get a big boost out of that part of it because I'm just using it for
No, but
flavoring.
if you're just using it for flavoring, you're getting actually the opposite. You're getting a homeopathic effect
Hmm.
because it's a very small amount. But
Yeah.
yeah, what I usually do is I just vortex my water because I have one of those electric drink mixers.
Uh huh.
So that in the presence of a magnetic field, that's
Well,
what I
here's what
do.
they're saying, and I wanted to know what Jules would think about this. Okay, so the idea behind solarized water rooted in color therapy or chromiotherapy is that the
Hmm.
penetration of sunlight through the different colored glass changes the chemical, physical, and biological properties of the water, creating a
Hmm.
sort of super water that can
Yeah,
potentially provide things like improved hydration, clearer thinking, and less stress. So the
yeah,
science behind it is that when a bottle is left in the sun long enough, the heat and the UV radiation kills
yeah.
bacteria and various other pathogens. Is it the bacteria and the pathogens that make you stressful?
No, see, it affects the water on a totally different level. The ancients knew this. That's why, like, churches have the, what do they call that in English? Stained glass windows. That's the
Uh-huh.
real reason behind stained glass windows in churches, because each one of
You're
those
kidding.
colors, yeah, yeah.
No.
hmm So this way, you're getting, if you're getting a multicolored image or whatever, you're getting the power of the sun as filtered through red, green, blue, violet, yellow. Yeah,
Jules,
that's the
Jules
reason.
was
Which also those churches weren't churches originally. They were water devices, right?
hmm
That if you go into that line of thinking, that they were actually a building where water was pumped up to, or water instead of a church to go and worship in, supposedly they were already doing it with the sun's rays. And another story is that when what happened, what they did, those churches, is they made the saint day, say it was St. Peter's or St. Paul's or St. whatever, there was more light in the church on that saint's day coming through
hmm
those on the
yeah.
angle,
Well,
on the angle
there's
that they
also,
came.
sure, there's also a theory that the pyramid functioned as a water pump. There's theories about that too.
Yeah, that's right.
hmm
We're going to find out the truth. We're all remembering the truth, and they're just all different stories, and we're all just remembering.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
many different aspects of all what we've talked about today, which
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
hmm
it's the
Well,
essence. Everything is the essence and your intention.
mm-hmm. Well,
hmm
once you drop the body, you're going to know everything anyway. So you're
That's
just going
right.
to
There you go.
remember.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a lot of fun to try to figure it out and try
Yeah,
to
it is
remember.
fun.
It is
Apparently,
fun.
there's a difference between I'm watching the time here. There is a difference between different types of water, like the sun offering water. There's various different cultures and traditions that practice this today, and it's called a sun offering water. So it's kind of a form. I don't want to go so far as to say it's worship. They're paying their respects to, just like the American Indian traditions of paying respect to their ancestors in some of their practices. But what they do is they gather up the spring water. They use spring water.
Mm-hmm.
You could, and they use gold colored bowls, Lori, or copper or brass. And they sometimes add yellow sunlight flowers like yellow daisies or calendulas or yellow roses to the water. And they might even add calcite or citrine and put it down into the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or a
they start,
crystal.
yeah, and they have
Mm-hmm.
like a ritual. It's kind of like you start off with a clean vessel.
Mm-hmm.
You pour your water into the bowl. Then you add all your other offerings and energetic tools with your
Mm-hmm.
intent.
Mm-hmm.
You say incantations or intents over the water, being sure to speak them into the actual water, so it has to do with your intonation and your voice. You can also blow the surface of the water with your intents and breathe over it, and this will produce a noticeable disruption to the surface of the water. Then you let the water sit out in the sun, in a bright sun, for about 8 or 9 hours. Once it's ready, you can remove your crystals, bring the water to your temple within, they call it, drink it, in other words,
Mm-hmm.
or you can pour it back into the earth as an offering to help replenish the earth with your intents. Or even a
hmm
section of your garden where you want your plants to grow. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the organic or biodynamic farming.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way it was described. I thought it was very beautiful,
Mm-hmm. I agree.
way of
Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
doing it.
I mean, if you put calcite crystals into it, it's gonna definitely affect physical characteristics of the water, such as diffraction. Like if you take a glass of water and pass a laser beam through it, it's gonna bend it a certain way. But if you keep it that way and you start adding, say, salt or sugar to that water, that laser beam is gonna start bending down and down and down. And if you add different chemicals to it, sometimes it might bend up. You know. So
So leaving things out in the sunlight in a copper bowl isn't toxic to you because the
no,
sunlight's doing.
no,
Okay,
the copper
I
is
was kind of wondering
non-toxic.
about that.
No, as a matter of fact, most of the older water pipes were made of copper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now they're going to a form of plastic, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
PVC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
that's because water gets coming from construction background with my brother. When we're doing completely
Either
leveling a house to the ground and rebuilding it, you know what we find
or
down in the pipes?
Hmm.
The corrosion. The water gets backed up and it stays in the pipelines. It doesn't evaporate completely. It creates a
hmm
lot of bacteria and buildup, and it makes your water impure to drink. And that's
yeah.
another reason why these people do this, is because depending on where you are in the world and what kind of living conditions you have, purification of water is very important to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
Now, there's a Vedic tradition, which is what Lori so greatly pronounced. I can't pronounce it. Sure, Gista.
Don't even.
It's a Vedic tradition in East India. Remember now, they were one of the first cultures, supposedly, that were
Yeah.
established as post-Atlantean.
The Surya Jal Chikitsa.
Chikitsa, right?
Mm-hmm.
To prepare it, um, they call it a divinely sourced and infused magical potion. But you just take a glass or a crystal bottle, and that's what I do. I have a crystal vase that I use because it holds a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
And I simply take a glass or crystal bottle, you fill it up with water,
Mm-hmm.
just water, and place it in the sunlight for 8 hours. And that's all you need to do. Um, Originally, they used to keep it in their practice for 3 days out in the sun, 8 hours a day for 3 days. And they'll tell you, don't refrigerate this water because it will reduce the health enriching properties of the energy infused water if you refrigerate it.
Same thing when you get like flowers, like a bouquet.
Mm-hmm.
You should drink the water that the flower cuttings were in, especially if they were roses. That's very beneficial for the immune system, and
Like
anti-cancer.
rosebud tea.
Yeah. Well, that's a
Yeah,
different plant. That's hibiscus. That's related to hibiscus. That's a bit different, but I know what you mean.
Hmm.
yeah, that's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
hmm
so that's at least two different. And now they are saying there was one called sunstone. If you all are familiar with the sunstone,
hmm
a lot of people will use sun infused water for ritual practices or for intense and healing ceremonies and services, and they don't necessarily drink this though because the sunstone is toxic. And do you remember when Mandy Moo did a show with us back a year ago or a year and a half ago? She forewarned people there are certain crystals that are toxic and
Mm-hmm.
they have to be
Yep.
handled with care. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just infuse your water with any old thing. Do your homework.
Right.
Make
hmm
sure you're not infusing
Yeah.
that water with
That's a
something that
good
could be
point.
Yeah,
toxic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
exactly.
You
Same
know,
same thing with the plants. You might want to make sure that none of those
Yeah.
plants are like neurotoxic or something like that.
exactly.
But
And
No arsenic and lace, huh?
yeah, no lily of the valley, because lily of the valley, that's highly
Uh-huh.
poisonous. That's
Oh yeah.
cardiotoxic, and that'll stop
Mm.
your heart.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah.
It's lights
Eesh.
out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, or
So
Jack in the Pulpit or any of these.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. And you got to know what you're working with. And the other thing is, the sunstone has some properties, chemical properties, besides it being toxic if you ingest it. The sunstone actually has very powerful properties that they will use in this sun infused water, but not to treat your body with or to ingest. It's used in ritual. And but you can have, like I do with the granite rocks, when I put these big granite stones next in between my plants.
hmm
Sometimes I'll use crushed granite and mix it into the soil, but lots
Yeah,
of times I'll just put my rocks in
that's
between my plants.
that's part of biodynamic farming. Yeah,
Yeah,
that works.
yeah. I didn't know it was called I didn't know that at the time I was doing it. It was just.
hmm Yeah.
But in any case, I think I got it from Gaza as a suggestion to use the granite chips, and it really no, it was Brian Lunsford.
Yes,
Anyway, because he was burying crystals into his planters. I'm like, what's he doing? I was watching him do it. And I said, are you planting crystals in your plants? He goes, that really works. So I tried it, and it freaking works. It really brings a plant. It helps bring a plant to life. It really does. But anyway, this sunstone, if you use it, you use it with 2 bowls. You have a bowl of water. You put the sunstone in that bowl. Then you take that bowl of water and you put it in a bigger bowl of water. And you go through your intents, you go through your ceremony, and you say your incantations. And that sunstone will put out the vibes needed through the thin protected bowl, and that'll infuse the water and put the sun's energy with it. So it's all about the intent more than anything. But it will still infuse the water, and then you can take that water, drink it, or put it on your plants. You just can't drink the water that the stone was sitting in for 8 hours. So if that makes sense. So that's pretty much all I had on the actual practices for the water. But now there's and if anybody else wants to add anything, but there are some ways to enhance your connections with the sun that have nothing to do with the infused water, where you could combine it.
Well,
And a lot of
that,
people do these
that,
rituals. Go ahead,
that's a
Delroy.
really interesting thing that you could do with the sun,
Yeah.
and that is grow plants in total darkness. If you take a plate of copper, expose it to the sun, and connect that copper plate via an insulated copper wire, say downstairs to the basement, and connect that to another copper plate, and use that copper plate as a source of sunlight, for want of a better word, and grow the plants in front of that copper plate, they will grow just as if they were exposed to actual sunlight.
Oh
Now,
wow, I didn't know. That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So they're using the Tesla coil, the copper coil concept.
Nobody knows how it works, but yes, you can grow plants in total darkness using this method.
Wow, I've never seen it. Do they have anything like that on video to show slow motion growth? Or
Sure, I'm sure you could look it up. Yeah,
wow,
yeah. Bill Beatty first talked about it, so you might want to check his channel first. Bill Beatty,
Bill Beatty, Bill
yeah, Bill
Beatty.
Beatty,
Okay.
yeah, the science guy.
Huh.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had very little luck here with growing inside my house, or trying to get things to come back that are supposed to come back because of excessively cold winters and not enough sunlight. But I understand that I can grow certain things in my bedroom back here, or in another dedicated room if I wanted to, using sun lamps, solar lamps,
Hmm.
as a form of energy. A lot of people grow THC that way in their homes.
Hmm. Sure.
Lori is trying to get back in, so let's just be patient. She has tried connecting a couple of times. She's having some difficult issues. I think her server may have crashed. Not the
YouTube's been
StreamYard.
glitchy. YouTube's been
Has
glitchy
it?
tonight. It told
Hmm.
Yeah.
threw out a couple of errors. I had to reload chat.
Right.
Very odd this evening.
Yeah, it's taking longer to load videos, I've noticed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's already
So we're clear.
10:25. Her device just won't connect here. She's trying. It's 10:25. Let me just wrap it up with there are some certain things that folks might not be aware of and do naturally. Didn't know was a time honored practice. But enhancing your connections with sun source energy. Um, so a lot of people will welcome the spiritual power of the sun into their awareness first thing every morning to harness the potential of each day. And I know that Lori and I both combine our meditative time in the mornings with our guides, sitting out in the sun when we can to help make that connection. And it just brings all that power and energy into focus. We release everything, release all of our thoughts, and we bring in that energy and have communications with our guides and our higher selves, mostly our higher self, because that's the sun is where we're getting that higher self. This can be an act of personal transformation for some. This one woman named Ajmira She's a Vedic, and she says she brings healing warmth of sun into her mind and to her heart, and through these practices is reminded that we have the opportunity to have a fresh start each and every day. She says, like the sun, we are the source of our own light. Like the sun, we are the source of our own light. By releasing our expectations, need for fulfillment by others, we can fill ourselves up with love from the inside and actually become love itself. In her book, The Ayurveda Way, she offers 108 different practices for enhancing mind, body, and spirit. And she has these 3 morning practices that she likes to utilize. Waking up early to meditate or walk in the sun. So she takes a sun walk. Begin each day softly gazing at your hands. Hand gazing to remind you that you have the ability to choose your response to any situation. She says your thoughts, speech, and actions are the palette that you can use to create any situation you want. Choosing to live in a space of creativity, abundance, and health is a powerful way to start your day. And thirdly, you could do an honor the sun ritual. For those who like ritual and like to incorporate ritual into their daily routine, there's an ancient Vedic practice of, I'm going to try to say this the right way, Arghayam, Arghayam, Arghayam. It's their way to offer reverence to the sun out of respect, which is the source of all life to them. And this practice consists of filling a copper vessel, here we go again, and going outside and pouring that water, sun-infused water, in a clockwise circle as an offering to the sun. This is where Steiner got some of his information, was through the Indian practices and rituals, because it helps you with your focus for your intent. Whether the ritual actually does anything or not, it's all up to what you believe. And Lori comes in at just the right
She
time.
made it. Nice. I was
Twice my
wondering.
computer froze up. I have no idea what's going on, but I'll get it figured out. Yeah, it just happens.
So we did put some references, I think, in the YouTube description if you want to check that out, folks.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Del. Go ahead, Delbert. What we were...
I just wanted to finish it out by saying the sun gives off a lot of stuff. It gives off mostly light waves, electrons, and also plasma. You know, a lot of people wonder about that. A lot of people get hung up on that. Okay, what is plasma? The layman's term for plasma is simply fire. Okay, that's what plasma is. So it's a source of fire, literally, in the sky. So that's why, you know, it's also very therapeutic to look deep into a fire, like, let's say, in the night, you know, after a long day's worth of work. You know, that's what primitive people used to do. They would stare into a fire every night, and I believe that too has therapeutic effect.
Yeah. A lot of ways.
Yeah, Truth Seeker. They'll do that, Truth Seeker, in biodynamic farming. Biodynamic gardeners will go out every morning and perform that in reverence to the sun's energy. As part of their treatment of the soil.
Anyway, we've come to the end of the hour and a half. Any final thoughts?
Walk barefoot on the ground first thing in the morning. That's all you got to do. Walk outside. Don't have to do anything else. You don't have to bend over and
get up, get out of bed.
No, nobody has to do any of that. Nobody has to do any of that. But people want to do it, because it connects them emotionally and spiritually. So they use it as a practice because they enjoy the process. They enjoy that process and that connection. That's the way they make their connection. But nobody has to do anything. We're just saying these are some of the things that people like to do to help make that connection.
Suggestions. Take what you want, leave the rest behind. It's that simple. That's all you got to do. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Sorry for the glitch with the computer. Sophia, thank you always for being here. Jules, thanks for joining us this week. It was so good to see you. Dalabar, it's always good to see you as well. So
Pleasure
thank
indeed.
you. Everyone in chat, thanks for joining us and just spending some time. We greatly appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And all of you take good care and say hello to the sun.
Yeah.
Yep.
And please do send some healing intents out to Jeannie Griffin. She's been working through some things and needs a little energy there, and good intents will help
Good
her along the
intents
way.
for all, you bet. Yep, good intents for all of you. Thank you so much. Peace out. Get some rest, Sophia.
I'm
Bye-bye.
Bye.